Hi everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie. So glad you are joining me today. I'm going under the assumption that you have followed the previous video and you are at the point where you have a clean workspace and a pathway through your craft space so that you can at least navigate. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to assess the room and we're going to basically divide and conquer. At least that's what I'm calling it. So we are going to sort like with like. Now, I'm not telling you to go onto all your shelves and pull everything off and sort like with like. Anything that you currently have a system for, please just leave it where it is. We can tackle individual systems or storage vehicles at a later date. Right now, we're just trying to get a hold of this stuff that's still homeless, if you will, or hasn't made its way back home. We're going to look at things that have a home. So when I showed you my craft room update midweek, I had a bin of stuff that has homes and I just haven't put it back because it was going to take too much time. I also have a bin of stamps and dies that they have homes, they just haven't made their way back. And so when you're looking at your room, now, what I want you to do is if you have things that have a home that you just haven't dealt with, this is the week to put them away. Okay? Now, when I say week, of course, some of you this may take a few weeks, and that's okay. Really what I'm saying is the next thing to focus on is put stuff back where it needs to go. For those of you that have no system at all, right, and you just have a big giant mess, the items that don't have a home, which is basically your big giant mess, what we want to do is we want to start categorizing them and putting like with like as well. So in this case, if you have a lot of stuff, I encourage you to do a high level sort. We did an exercise where we started listing things that we had in our craft room, and a high level sort would be things like tools, embellishments, mixed media. You could set up 3 bins that would house tools, embellishments, mixed media, whatever categories fit your inventory, okay? You can split down into a lower level if you have the room and the bins to do that kind of thing. You are going to have to do it at some point anyways, but I would just encourage you to start with the high level if you have a lot of stuff. If you have less stuff, then by all means break it down into further categories. So now if you take your box of tools that you've already pre-sorted, you're going to break it down into, in my case, it would be punches and stamps and dies and embossing folders, so that each of those has its own container. And as you're doing this, we want to have a few thoughts going through our head, right? We want to think about how much stuff that we have. Do we have a lot of punches? Do we have a lot of stamps? Do we have a little bit of washi? Is that even possible? So that when we come to finding a home for them, we have some sort of idea of how much space we're going to have to allocate. I hope that makes sense. The reason why I encourage you to bin things is that it automatically gives you a defined scope of work, right? So if you have a bin of tools, you've already pre-sorted into a bin of tools. The next time you go into your craft room to work, you can then say, I've got 15 minutes to take those tools and sort them into these categories. And then it's done. You haven't created this big overwhelming task in front of you. It's very defined and limited. So a few other things to think about for those of you that have homes for stuff, but the homes are full. I have some of that. So really what we need to think about when we have more inventory than we have space allotted is, do we want to expand the amount of space we've allocated for this item, right? So if we want to expand, that's fine. We'll have to figure out a way to make that work. Or if we say, no, this is as much as I want, this is how much I feel comfortable with, then you need to start considering downsizing, right? That means you're going to have to make some calls about what you're keeping and what you're not keeping, or you have to recategorize things somewhere else, which is also possible. The other thing is, are you happy with the home that you have for this item? So does it work? Does it not work? If it does or doesn't, right? You want to make note of that. That's kind of what we were doing with this listing, where we were ranking if it was a good system or a bad system, right? So if you haven't filled that out as you're doing this exercise, make sure you update this accordingly. The other thing I want you to consider is how you would group items. So again, back to the same list, keep going back there, I should have just stayed there. These would probably be a natural grouping for you, because that's how you already think of it. But for instance, I have stickers, and I have alphas, I have flat stickers, I have dimensional stickers, and I have 12 by 12 stickers. Just because they fit under the category stickers doesn't mean that all these subcategories have to be sorted or organized in the same manner, right? I can have a different system for each one of these, if that makes sense. So while you have these items here, maybe you want to further break things down depending on how you would use them. And that's really what you want to think about. If you have a particular item, how would you use them? So here's an example for die cuts and ephemera. I actually have a few different ways that I store those in my craft room. I have a die cut binder where I store loose items by color. I also have die cut bins where I store also by color, but more loosely organized. I also store those in with kits and collections. I do each of those for a very specific reason based on the way that I use them. So again, as you're going through this, you need to constantly be thinking about the items. It's not just a matter of putting them in a bin, but you need to be thinking about what you would use these items for, how much you have, what would be an ideal way to store them, that kind of thing. You also want to assess while you're going through it, is it something that you want to keep or something you want to discard? Again, this is not necessary that you have to do purging as part of this, but if you come across something that you don't like, then just have it removed from the craft room right away. Like, don't try and find a place for it only to then turn around and purge it at a later time, right? If you don't like it, or if it's broken, or it just doesn't work for you anymore, move it on. If you have anything that's not on this listing, by all means make sure you make a note of it, because you will find that a useful tool. And what I also want you to make note of is what area of your inventory are you excited about using or organizing, right? So if you're really excited about all of your stickers, make a note of that in your book, because those are going to be things that we're going to want to tackle first, right? The stuff that we're excited about, or the stuff that's easy to resolve, are what we're going to want to focus on. We are gathering small victories to motivate us on towards the end. So that is my talk for this week. I am going to pull out a couple things here and show you what I'm going to work on this week. So you see in front of you a pretty big bin of dies and stamps and stencils, and these have all been categorized and they all have a home. So if you look at this particular stamp set, you'll see it has a location, so I know exactly where this is going to go. What I will do, again, this is my high level sort, is I will now turn around and divide these into a more defined sort, and I'll show you what that means here in a little bit. I'm also going to work on this little bin. I have a couple recent purchases that need to be put into my inventory system. I have a couple items that have gone bad, right? They've dried out, so I need to remove them from my inventory system. And I have a sample that I got the names mixed up, so I have to fix that. And this actually needs to go in my excess inventory. So those are things that I'm going to work on this week. You'll notice that I am not including for myself the big bin of embellishments or the Christmas bin, because I think this is what I'm going to be able to handle for this week. So remember, again, set yourself up for success so that you cannot possibly fail. What this means is that this is probably going to take me a few weeks to get through. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to do them all sequentially, one after the other. This is just the goal for this week. Next week, we'll move on to something else, and then in between or at the same time, I can be working on some of the other items as my time allotment works out. I do want to encourage you though, for whatever you set for this week, I do want to encourage you that whatever you define as your next goal, right, please don't move on to the next video until you finish that initial definition. So in this case, it doesn't have to be everything in your craft room, but I would like to encourage you to finish at least the high level sort of everything, and then a more detailed sort of, say, one grouping. And we will build on that throughout the weeks that come ahead. So do what you're set out for. When that's done, then come back and watch the next video. I really don't want you to become discouraged or think that you're falling behind when there really is no concept of that, right? The videos aren't going to go anywhere. They will always be here for you to watch when you're ready. If you haven't already done so and are interested in the Facebook group that I created to help encourage you guys along with this journey, I'll leave the name of the group here so that you can see. By all means, request to join. I'd love to see your before and after photos. If you have any questions for me or you need some advice, please feel free to ask them there. I will try and answer them as best I can, or there may be others in the group that will volunteer some ideas as well. And I think that is it. I will do another midweek video showing you how I further break these down and then get them into their home. I think that's it, everyone. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and happy organizing.